Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. If you've ever stared at a chemistry textbook and just felt totally overwhelmed by all the dense equations and procedures, well, we're going to shift your perspective today. Forget the intimidating lab setup for a second. We are going to treat the laboratory just like a kitchen, and we're looking at this whole topic as our very own chemistry cookbook. By the end of this, you're going to see that creating complex chemical compounds is really just about following the right recipe. So let's clear something up right away. When we hear the word salt, we instantly think of the stuff we sprinkle on our French fries, right? But in chemistry, the definition is way broader. A salt is actually an ionic compound that forms when the hydrogen ions of an acid get replaced by metal ions or sometimes ammonium ions. Basically, think of it as a chemical swap. The acid gives up its hydrogen and a metal steps right into its place to create a brand new compound. Here is our recipe book for today. We're going to quickly walk through what a salt is, tackle the golden solubility rules, and then look at the exact methods for making both soluble and insoluble salts, followed up by some quick exam tips. All right, starting off with section 1. What exactly is a salt? To give you an idea of the sheer variety here, just look at some of these common examples. You've got sodium chloride, which is your everyday table salt, but then you have things like copper 2 sulfate, which forms these absolutely stunning, vibrant blue geometric crystals. And lead 2 iodide, that one is a brilliant opaque yellow. Because different metals swap into different acids, we get this amazing colorful spectrum of compounds. Moving right along to section 2, the golden solubility rules. Now, this table right here, it's literally the chef's ultimate cheat sheet. It neatly divides all salts into 2 distinct kingdoms, soluble and insoluble. So I highly recommend grabbing a screenshot of this for your exam prep. Notice the patterns here. All nitrates, soluble, no exceptions whatsoever. Sodium, potassium, and ammonium salts are always soluble too. Now, most chlorides and sulfates will dissolve nicely, but you've got to watch out for those tricky exceptions, like silver chloride or barium sulfate. On the flip side, most carbonates are completely insoluble, basically acting like rocks in water, unless they happen to be paired with sodium, potassium, or ammonium. Knowing these rules is crucial because they tell us exactly which cooking method to use.
Which brings us to section 3, preparing soluble salts.
Just to keep our bearings as we proceed, notice the fork in the road here. If our goal is to make a soluble salt, one that completely vanishes into water, we need a reaction between an acid and either a base or a metal. But if we want an insoluble salt, we actually have to mix 2 already soluble solutions together. Right now, we're focusing entirely on that left side, the soluble salts. Let's dig into the specific recipes. Let's look at recipe number 1. This is where we mix a pure metal directly with an acid. Take zinc and dilute sulfuric acid, for example. They react pretty aggressively to produce zinc sulfate, which is our target salt, and some bubbling hydrogen gas. Now, the technique here is super important. We add excess zinc, meaning we toss in way more than can possibly dissolve. Why do we do that? Well, to guarantee that every single drop of that acid is neutralized. We definitely don't want dangerous, unreacted acid hanging around in our final product. Once the bubbling stops, we just filter out that leftover solid zinc, and we're left with a pure zinc sulfate solution. But what if a pure metal is a bit too aggressive or maybe doesn't react well at all? We pivot to recipe 2, using a metal oxide instead. Say we want to make copper sulfate. We warm up some sulfuric acid and steadily stir in black copper 2 oxide powder. We keep adding it until it literally stops dissolving and just sits at the bottom of the beaker. That visual cue tells us the acid is 100% neutralized. Just like the last recipe, we filter out that unreacted black powder, leaving us with a gorgeous, clear blue solution of salt and water. Now, recipe 3 throws us a bit of a curveball. What happens when we mix an acid with an alkali? In this case, both of your ingredients are completely soluble, clear liquids, like hydrochloric acid and sodium hydroxide. They react perfectly to form salt and water. But here's the massive problem. Because everything is a liquid, there's no leftover solid powder to filter out at the end. If you accidentally add a drop too much acid or too much alkali, your final salt is contaminated, and you can't just filter your mistake away. So, how do we get around that? We use a highly precise laboratory technique called titration. First, we measure the acid and alkali perfectly. Then we add an indicator, a chemical dye that changes color, so we can pinpoint the exact microscopic drop where neutralization happens. But catch this, that indicator dye actually taints our beautiful salt. So step 3 is where the real magic happens. We repeat those exact same volume measurements from our trial run, but without the indicator. That leaves us with perfectly pure salt water. Our final soluble salt recipe brings some fizz to the party by using a carbonate. If you drop solid calcium carbonate into hydrochloric acid, it fizzes up vigorously, releasing carbon dioxide gas alongside our target salt and water. The methodology here is exactly the same as our first two recipes. Add excess solid carbonate, wait for the fizzing to stop completely so you know the acid is gone, filter out the leftover solid, and you're good to go. Which leads us nicely into section 4, the art of crystallization. Okay, so you've got this invisible, soluble salt dissolved in water. How do you actually get the solid physical pieces out? You might think, oh, just boil the water completely dry. But if you do that, you're going to end up with a messy, thermal degraded powder. Instead, we use the standard 5-step crystallization procedure. We gently heat the solution just enough to evaporate some of the water, making it highly saturated. Then we take it off the heat and just patiently leave it to cool. As it cools, the water can't hold as much dissolved salt, so the salt is literally forced to come together into beautiful crystals. We filter those out, give them a quick wash with distilled water, and carefully dry them between sheets of filter paper. Okay, flipping to the second half of our cookbook, Section 5, Creating Insoluble Salts. This is where the real visual magic happens, precipitation. When you mix two completely clear liquids together and they instantly form a solid, opaque cloud that drops to the bottom of the beaker, that's precipitation in action. Because the new salt we've created is insoluble, based on our golden rules, the water just can't hold onto it, so it crashes right out of the solution as a solid precipitate. Let's look at this concept in action. We literally call this the yellow magic trick. Imagine taking a test tube of clear lead-2 nitrate solution and pouring in a clear solution of potassium iodide. The exact millisecond those two liquids touch, the ions swap partners, and bam, it instantly conjures a stunning, bright yellow solid of lead-2 iodide. And because the other product, potassium nitrate, is perfectly soluble, it just stays hidden in the water. You simply pour the whole mixture through some filter paper, and you've captured your insoluble yellow salt. And similarly, we've got the white magic trick. Mixing clear silver nitrate with clear sodium chloride yields this incredibly distinct milky white precipitate of silver chloride. Again, the unwanted sodium nitrate just stays dissolved out of the way. You just filter out the white precipitate, wash it, and dry it. Honestly, it is arguably the easiest and most satisfying method in the entire chemistry lab. All right, bringing it all together in Section 6, Summary and Exam Tips. This summary table right here is your golden ticket. It links the exact type of salt you need to the corresponding laboratory procedure. If your exam asks for a soluble salt from an insoluble base, you instantly know. Add excess solid, filter, then crystallize. If it's a soluble salt from an alkali, your only option is titration. And if the target salt is completely insoluble, no heat, no excess solids needed. You just use precipitation. So the main takeaways you absolutely need to lock in for your exams are all about matching your state of matter to the correct method. Examiners love to test if you know why we use excess solid. Remember, it's to safely react away all that dangerous acid. They'll definitely test if you know that titration is strictly for when both reactants are soluble liquids. And whatever you do, do not forget the rigid 5-step crystallization order. Filter, evaporate, cool, crystallize, dry. I'm going to leave you with a bit of a puzzle to test your new chef skills. Think about our precipitation magic tricks, consult those golden solubility rules we reviewed earlier, and see if you can write the recipe for barium sulfate yourself. Hint, you're going to need a soluble barium source and a soluble sulfate source. Give it a try. You should realize by now that you have the tools to cook up practically any salt. Thanks for hanging out with me in this explainer. Keep practicing, and I'll see you next time.